Hey everybody, welcome back to Creating Scenery for Microsoft Flight Simulator. As I mentioned previous videos not too long ago, I was going to start a series on creating scenery, either an airport or simple scenery, using two different methods. One is the power user way, and that is using a text editor to edit the actual XMLs and stuff like that. I won't do that a lot, okay, because you've seen how I did it way back where I just used Notepad++, which is a free editor. There's a link in the description to get that. But this series, I will concentrate using the menu system that is inherent to the SDK in dev mode in the sim. So that will be our primary focus, is since the SDK hasn't changed dramatically, but the menu system is better than it used to be. So creating assets and all that kind of stuff is a lot better than it used to be when it first came out. That's probably why I was more of a power user than using the menu system a while back. Okay, but I've gotten into using the menu systems a little better now because it's a lot stabler than it used to be. But this video, part one, whatever, may be a little dry for you, and I apologize. I do ask that you do watch it, though. I'm not going to be in the sim. I'm just going to be talking about some basic setup. Whether you're using the menu system or not, it's really helpful for you to understand where things are and what to expect, because you never know, even with the menu system, something might go awry and you need to figure it out. All right. So I think most of you know, all of you should by now, how to download the SDK stuff. But if you don't, I will show you really how to do that in the next video when we're in the sim working. But in the sim, there you can download the SDK, and that downloads into a directory that you determine, and allows you to place it where you want, and you get all the different tools and samples and things like that. Documentation you have to actually download separately, but it will install it in your SDK location. All right. A few things to understand. First, we're going to take a look at the tools folder, and down in the bin, the one file that you're going to really want to know is the fsPackageTool.exe. The latest build is August 11th, 2022. So every time that there's an SDK update, it's always good to go into tool bin folder and see what the build is for that package tool. Okay. Like I've always mentioned to you before, if I create a project, let's say 5 Alpha 1 airport, always in that project folder, I will make a copy of the FS package tools exe into that folder. That way I can drop my project XML right on top of that and build it outside of the sim. Okay, I think most of you know that I do it that way. I do most of my building outside of the sim, until I'm actually in the sim adding things inside the sim. Okay, then I will build it inside the sim. So I build in and out depending on what I'm doing, but most of my initial builds are outside of the sim using the FS package tools. So I make sure that that's in every folder, not every folder, every project that I'm working on. All right, but it's always good after every SDK update to check this date and see if there's a newer build of the EXE. Hasn't changed in the past few sim updates, so we're still good. Okay, so that's the tool folder in the SDK. The other one is obviously the samples, and this is where you make copies. You copy and drag and drop the specific type of scenery that you're doing into your project folder. And I have a project folder that I've created outside of my normal folder. Okay, my normal folder is MSFS projects / scenery projects. That's where I put my real stuff that I'm working on. Okay, and if, by the way, if I say folder or if I say directory, I mean the same thing. I'm from the generation that we called them directories, so sometimes I'll, even though I've been working with computers ever since they hit the open market back in the 1980s, the first PC that is, so I still intermix the term folder and directory, but they're the same thing. Okay, anyway, so I have my scenery projects where I actually build my create my scenery. All right, but in this particular case, for this video and this video only, I created a directory in my MSFS projects called Huron 5 Alpha 1, and inside that folder, and I put it here just for this video's sake, okay, so I don't overwrite something. But in this series, I'm going to create a brand new airport. It's not brand new. I'm going to redo an airport close to my house, okay, 5 Alpha 1 in Huron County, Ohio, okay. And if you'll notice in my scenery project, I have 5 Alpha 1, but that is not a usable package. Okay, I created a dummy airport with no airport stuff. It's just where I put polygons for buildings, and I use it as my test bed. Okay, this airport is not big at all. It just has one small strip, couple buildings, a few hangars. Okay, but I am going to, in this series, actually create it as it is. Okay, so that's going to be our tutorial airport, 5 Alpha 1 in Ohio. Okay, so let's go back to Huron 5 Alpha 1, and I have copied out of the samples folder the simple scenery and the simple airport, because they're different on their setup, but you can do simple scenery inside a simple airport. Okay, you can do an airport inside of a simple scenery, except there's just a little nuance that you have to do to make your simple scenery into an airport. Okay, and I'll probably show you that in upcoming videos. Again, this is going to be a dry video, but I hope that you stick with it and understand this is kind of an introduction. So what I want to do is I want to show you the difference between the simple airport folder structure and the simple scenery folder. Now, normally what I would do in this case, since I've copied them into Huron 5 Alpha 1 folder, I want to make sure that I rename the simple scenery or the simple airport to my actual project name. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to backspace, I'm going to slow click the name, and we're going to call this, since this is simple scenery, I'm going to call this, as just for this video, I'm going to call it Huron, or her 5 alpha 1, and I'm going to call it simple scenery. All right, I guess I could have just put, that way I don't confuse it with a real project. All right, and then for the simple airport, I'm going to slow click that, and I'm going to go ahead and put here 5 alpha 1 in front of that as well. That way I know that they're not exact duplicates of what's in the SDK folder. All right, so that's just for this video. When we create the airport, truly create the airport, I'll give it a better name. All right, so let's take a look. Let's open up the folder for this. I know my picture's probably hiding it, so I'm going to slide my picture over this way for you for now. Okay. So here we have the simple airport version and the simple scenery folder. All right, so let's look at simple scenery. And simple scenery, by default, will have the package definitions folder and the package sources folder, plus the scenery project XML. Okay, remember, now we're doing this the power user. You don't have to do this when you use the menus, and you're going to see that in the next video. But the XML, the main XML, has to have the name of your project. Oops, I don't want that. I'm going to rename this the same as my project. All right, 5 alpha 1 simple scenery. All right, and I want to do it this way so I don't confuse it from the airport file. All right, now you're going to go into this XML with Notepad++, right click, open with Notepad++, drag that over here, drag that over. I'm going to drag that over. Wait a minute, here we go. There we go. Be patient, Christopher. All right, so in the main project XML, it just points, that's all it does, it just points to your package definition XML, okay? But the package definition XML has to be the exact same name, all right? So you're going to, it doesn't have to, but it's good if you do it that way. We're going to make this here 5 alpha 1 simple scenery. Now normally I would leave off the simple scenery part and just make it the name of my project. Okay, and then you're going to save. Okay, so since this XML points to this XML, we need to go into the package definitions and change that name of that XML so it can find it. So let's get rid of this. Let's close this out. And let's go into package definitions. And there's says my company simple scenery simple. This XML needs to be the same as our main project. So here 5 alpha 1 simple scenery. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in my scratch pad here. I'm going to control, whoops, try this again here. Okay, control C, that way I have that in my scratch pad. All right, in the package definitions we need to change this folder name that's in there, which said the same thing as our XML, right? So I'm going to slow click this, and I'm going to control V, so those two are the same. Okay. Now we need to open the new XML that we just created in Notepad++. And here you're going to see a list of all the asset groups for this simple scenery. Okay, simple scenery is going to have the content info, and this is usually where you put your little splash icon, whatever. I hardly ever use that. Okay, but anywhere that you see my company scenery simple, it needs to be named as the project. Okay. Sorry about that interruption. Anyway, in this XML, Cure 5 Alpha 1 simple scenery.xml, up at the top, give it a name. And you can Control V here, give it the same name if you wanted to. But down here, you'll notice the asset groups that are automatically for simple scenery. Like I said, the content info and the path to that, and that path needs to be the same as your project name. Okay, so I'm going to Control V there, put that in there, because there's a folder inside package definitions now that's called this. All right, so we need to make sure that we point to that folder. And then inside the content folder, we need this name to be the same as our project, so we're going to Control V that and copy that name in there as well. Okay, now there's by default two other asset groups, my model lib and my scene. Okay, now my scene you don't have to rename, but please, when you create scenery, make sure that your model lib, this folder right here, has a totally unique name other than just model lib. If you don't, it can conflict with somebody else's scenery who didn't follow that so-called rule or guideline, and you'll have it could crash your sim. Okay, so let's get out of Notepad for a second, just minimize that and go back into our project folder and go to package sources, and notice we have model lib inside of there. All right, but we want this to be a unique name, and usually what I do is I give it the name of my project with model lib at the end of it. Okay, that way it has its own unique name. All right, so I'm going to slow click this, and I'm going to put my cursor in the front, and I'm going to do a Control V, and then I'm going to put a dash. All right, so my model lib folder is now the name of my project dash model lib. Okay, you don't have to have the model lib in there, but it's good for you to be able to recognize which folder it is. Okay, so we'll click out of that. Now we're going to go back into Notepad, and we're going to change the package sources folder to be the same as that folder that we just renamed. So I'm going to do a Control V and put the dash there. So it's looking in my uniquely named model lib folder for any buildings or any models that I make, right? Okay. Now the scene you don't have to do anything with, all right? Because you're going to have a scene inside the package sources, but you can have a unique name for that as well. Okay, I'm not going to do that for this. Okay, but you can put the same name dash scene behind there, and then give the output folder a unique name. And I kind of suggest you do that. Make sure everything for your project is totally unique to your project. That way it doesn't interfere with somebody else who didn't follow guidelines. All right. Then you simply save this Huron 5 Alpha 1 Simple Scenery XML. Okay. Now, so let's go back. Here's our project, our main XML. I know it's always confusing that there's two XMLs with the same name. Okay. But that's just the way this dog chews its bone. All right. So we have the main project XML, and inside the package definitions, we have an XML with the same name, but the content of this XML points to all of the package sources and outputs for your project. All right. So that is a simple scenery folder setup. All right. Let's take a look at a simple airport folder. It's a little bit different, but not too complex. All right. So let's go into the airport folder. Yes, we have an airport project XML, right? Okay. Again, we want this airport project XML to be the name of our project. So we're going to rename this one. And I'm just going to put, so I don't confuse it, I'm going to do a Control V dash. All right. So the airport project XML has the name of our project. Okay. Now, I normally, like I said, I will not have a simple scenery and an airport folder structure in the same project. I'm either doing one or the other. Okay. So I'm just showing you how to make edits for each one of those depending on which one you use. Okay. And we're going to talk about this further as we go along. Now let's go back in, let's go into the package definitions, and the package definition is no different. Okay. So I am going to, let me go back one, and I'm going to now Control C this. So I have airport project in front of it. And let's go back into package sources and rename this XML to be exactly the same name as our project, which is Here 5 Alpha 1 simple scenery airport project. Okay. All right. I should have put simple airport. That's all right. It'll work. All right. And then this folder, it also gets that same name, just like we did with the simple scenery. Okay. Now we're going to go back one step. So all of my XML say the same, and my package definition XML is the same. Now we need to go into the package definition XML like we did with that other one in Notepad++. And anywhere that you see My Company Airport, you're going to replace with the actual name of your project. All right, so I'm going to select the title or the name, Control V, and I'm going to find the content info, package definitions. We're going to make My Company Airport the same, and we're going to make the content info the same, and we are going to make the airport itself. Notice that there is no model lib in there, right? This is the data for the airport, okay? It's in the package sources, all right? And then it writes the output after a build for your package into the scenery folder, okay? So with an airport, you get an airport asset and you get a materials asset, okay? Now, we need to make some changes with the airport. Remember that unique name? You want a unique name for the airport, and you want a unique name for the materials. So let's minimize this, and let's go back one and go into the package sources. Notice we have a data folder, and inside the data folder, we have an XML of an airport, right? And this happens to be down in Mexico, I believe. Okay. We want to rename this, but if we open this with Notepad++, we have all of this airport stuff. All right. latitude and longitudes, all the different stuff. This XML can cause problems because it's putting things somewhere else in the world that you may not be working on. All right, so this can cause problems. All right. If you don't want this to cause problems, you have to do things the long way if you're using a text editor to do it. And you're going to find in the videos coming up that we're using the menu system that it's going to be much easier to use the menu system. Like I said, I used to be the power user using the text editor when the SDK first came out because of issues with the menus, but the issues with the menus have slowly gone away. So it's better to use the menu system to create your projects now, okay? But I would have to go into this file and change the name of the airports, the names of the cities, and latitudes and longitudes, okay? So anyway, I'm not going to concentrate too much in making those kind of changes, but that's where you would go into that file, rename it to the actual ICAO designation of your airport, and change the stuff inside that file that represents your airport. But like I said, the menu system makes it a lot easier, but you can do it with the text editor. All right, now I'm going to minimize this. We are going to go back to package sources, and inside the data, out inside the package sources, you have the data, which is the airport data, but you also have a materials folder. All right, the material folder also has to have a unique name so it doesn't conflict with somebody else's material folder. So it's always a good idea to rename this. So I'm going to go in front, I'm going to Control V dash. So this material folder has the same name as our unique project, okay? And then hit enter. All right. Now, here you can start, if you wanted to, you can have buildings and stuff. You can have a model lib in your project using the power user method, but you have to enter those manually. Okay, and that's why you're going to see the menu system is a lot better. Okay, but let me expand this so we can see it. So I have a material library, okay, but if I wanted to, at this particular location, package sources, I can right click, I can add a new folder, and I can Control V, put my name of my project dash model lib in this folder, okay? But until I tell the sim that there is a model lib asset group, it won't know what to do with this folder, okay? So I would have to go back to the package definitions and go into that XML, right click, open that in Notepad++, and I would have to add a new asset group for my model lib, okay? And there's different ways that you can do it. You can, if you know how to write the tags, you can create a space somewhere, hit enter after another asset group, and you can start typing all the tags and the information by hand, or if you have another model lib that you can use as a template, you can drop that in here, and I'll show you that here in a second. Let me go find it. So I have pointed over to my 5 Alpha 1 here in Ohio XML, my guinea pig airport, and opened up the package definitions XML. And inside of there, you notice that I have a material library, okay? And this is the unique name I gave that material library. But I also have a model lib asset group, okay? And if I want to use this as a model, I'm simply going to highlight that asset group, I'm going to hit Control C, and I'm going to go into our airport XML, and I'm going to Control V. So I just added a new asset group, except I'll have to change these names to be pointing to our existing project that we're working on. For example, we'll come back here, and I will get up to my Huron Airport, and I want to get this back in my pad, so I'm going to Control C that, so I get these paths correct. Okay, so they equal these paths. Let's go back into Notepad++, and here is the model lib asset group that I added manually. And I'm going to replace the 5alpha1 here with the name of my project. And remember, we added this model lib to this folder right here. And then I'm going to change this 5alpha1 to be the same. Okay? So now, if I build this project, I now have a model lib for an airport. Okay? And the same goes with the materials. I can add the name of our project in front of that to be consistent with our folder structure. And then I can change the material output to be the same as well. Okay? So it's unique. And then I simply save that. All right? Then I can go back in and build my project, and my airport will have a model lib folder. All right. So let's kind of rehash a little bit what we did. Let's get out of Notepad++ and let's take a look at the two separate projects that I have for Huron Airport. If I was doing a simple scenery, just buildings, no airport whatsoever, I'm just replacing buildings that are on an existing airport, and I didn't want to make any changes to the existing airport itself, I would use a simple scenery. Okay? And in the simple scenery, we get a folder structure with a package definition, package sources, and the controlling XML. Inside the package definitions, we have an XML, which points to or creates all the asset groups for that simple scenery. Okay? If I was doing an airport from scratch, starting over, which we're going to do in the menu system, okay, I'll have a simple airport folder, okay, named accordingly. And inside that, you have a package definitions and a main XML, just like you would with a simple scenery, except the package definitions, looks the same, but inside the package sources, instead of a model lib and a materials, you also have a data folder, and inside the data folder is the XML that controls your airport. So you, in our particular case, after we create this with a menu system, we're going to have an XML in there that's going to kind of look like this. Okay? But inside this XML, whoops, wrong thing, I didn't want to do that. Inside this XML, when we create it, it's going to have the information about the actual airport that we're working in. Okay, its latitude and longitude, its runways, and that kind of stuff. And you're going to see that in the next videos when we create this airport. Okay, so showing you the hard way to create an airport first, and that's using the text editor. All right. Which I used to do, and most of the creators used to do it this way too, before they ironed out the menu system and how it wrote these files. So the next video, we're going to be in the sim, and we are going to create a brand new 5 Alpha 1 airport. All right. So please subscribe, hit that notification bell, comment, share this with your colleagues. And if you feel inclined to support what I do on this channel for you guys, buymeacoffee.com/myphysicalworld. And I will see you guys on the next video. See you later.